Hakeem Olajuwon, one of the greatest centers of all time, a top 5 center in fact. Some would argue that with his resume and skills, he can arguably be ranked even higher than that. Whatever the case may be, there's no question that Hakeem was one of the greatest of all time, the second best player of the 1990s, right behind Michael Jordan. However, despite his greatness, he had a very bumpy road to getting there, especially in the years before he won his championships. While many of us recognize Hakeem mainly for his 1994 and 1995 playoff runs, he had quite a journey, and even when he was younger, his skill set was already very developed and so smooth on both ends of the floor. In this video, we're going to take a look at how good he actually was. How good was he before he won those titles? And how good was he compared to the other all-time centers in NBA history? How's it going, folks? My name's Andy, and let's get started. But before we start, I'd like to give a shout out to my sponsor, Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community that offers a wide array of courses. With so much to explore, real projects to create, and the support of fellow creatives, Skillshare empowers you to accomplish real growth. It offers classes that include illustration, graphic design, web development, marketing, creative writing, and much, much more. Personally, I've always loved digital art, so I'd recommend the classes on graphic design or illustration, like Digital Illustration by Jerem Vogel. Skillshare is also very affordable compared to pricey in-person classes and workshops. An annual subscription is less than $10 a month. The first 500 of my subscribers to click the link in the description will get 2 months of free premium membership. Thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. To start things off, Hakeem was drafted in the legendary 1984 class, the first overall pick by the Houston Rockets ahead of Michael Jordan and Sam Bowie, who we know by now had a mediocre career due to injuries. I think Hakeem getting drafted at number 1 is a significant point of interest, because the fact that he was drafted before Jordan, yet nobody has ever criticized the Rockets for making that pick, it just shows how amazing Hakeem truly was. In most other situations, if you get drafted before the GOAT, you'd get criticized. The team that drafted you would get criticized, and that would linger throughout your whole career. But that wasn't the case with Hakeem, because even early on in his career, he was an absolute behemoth. In his rookie season, Hakeem would average about 20 and 12, over 2 blocks a game, and help the Rockets win 19 more games than the previous season. This duo of Hakeem and Ralph Sampson would be coined the Twin Towers, the original Twin Towers way before Duncan and Robinson. Unfortunately, Sampson would succumb to the injury bug as multiple knee injuries and back issues would devastate his career shortly after. However, Hakeem was going strong. As a sophomore, he would improve all around and the duo would lead the team to the NBA Finals. Throughout the 1986 playoff run, Hakeem became the man on the team, the primary option instead of Sampson. It was here where he'd be recognized as a true superstar with averages of 27 and 12, 3.5 blocks per game throughout the entire playoff run. Hakeem put on a full display of his versatility. Even back in 1986, his dream shake, while not as polished, was still his go-to move in the post. He would combine his excellent footwork with spins, pump fakes, quick turnarounds, and overall, he was very quick. Defensively, he was arguably even better. Not only did he rack up a ton of steals and a ton of blocks, he was ridiculously fast on the perimeter. Even back then, guards would try to get switches onto big men so they could blow by them. That was not happening with Hakeem. It was a much more difficult task for opposing guards. He credits his footwork and agility to his days playing soccer back in Nigeria. Unlike most other players who grew up playing basketball and went to AAU and all those tournaments, Hakeem only started to play basketball at the age of 17. Before that, he was a goalkeeper in soccer, so it's even more impressive how quickly he picked up the sport. But for him, he fell in love with basketball, so the transition was fast. Despite Hakeem's all-around dominance in 1986, the bigger storylines did not involve him. All eyes, all headlines were on the Lakers and Celtics. They faced each other a couple times in previous years, but now, both of them had arguably the greatest team in their franchise's history. At least up until then they did. In fact, they played each other in the finals in 1985 when the Lakers came out on top. This time, the Celtics wanted their revenge. They would win 67 games and the Lakers won 62 games, and they were on a collision course once again. However, in the Western Conference Finals, Hakeem would ruin that. In one of his best series of all time, he obliterated the Lakers. He destroyed their front court and carried the Rockets to a 4-1 victory. He would average 31 points, 11 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, and 4 blocks a game. Despite everyone believing the Lakers would make the finals, they got severely outplayed. Lakers head coach Pat Riley was asked what he could have done to stop him. Riley said, "We tried everything. We put 4 bodies on him. We helped from different angles. He's just a great player." Unfortunately, the Rockets' miraculous playoff run would stop at the finals. The Celtics would defeat them in 6. What followed was a domino effect that caused the Rockets to really struggle to make another deep playoff run for many years. A couple of Rocket starters got busted for drugs and suspended. Ralph Sampson, like I mentioned earlier, fell off due to injuries and then got traded. And Hakeem was now essentially by himself. These years, from 1987 to 1992, were the lowest points of his career. It included 4 first-round exits, 1 second-round exit, and in 1992, the Rockets missed the playoffs entirely. Tensions surrounding Hakeem and the front office were rising, and everyone started to point fingers. Hakeem was already upset with all the losing and not getting enough help, but then the Rockets GM Steve Patterson made it even worse. Patterson even accused Hakeem of faking a hamstring injury to avoid playing games and to use it as a ploy to get his contract renegotiated. Patterson said, "All we can do is refer to the ongoing pattern of renegotiation demands. He says he can't play, therefore he's suspended. If he gets out on the court and plays, then the suspension is lifted." To which Olajuwon responded with, "They are trying to shift the blame to the contract. That's not the issue here. It's my hamstring." Additionally, Olajuwon's agent would file a grievance report to the Players Association, and overall, it was a huge mess. A mess that was seemingly unsalvageable. It was widely assumed that Hakeem would be gone in the summer of 1992. Fortunately, that wasn't the case. Hakeem remained in Houston and sought to play it through. After converting to Islam, Hakeem's faith would be his primary motivation, along with a coaching change. Rudy Tomjanovich was now the Rockets' new head coach. With a revamped roster and a new sense of direction, Hakeem flourished, and from 1993 onwards, he would mark his legacy. Despite being in his 30s, Hakeem was as complete of a player we've ever seen. His 1993-94 season has a legitimate argument to be the greatest season by a single player in history. That year, he won the MVP, the Defensive Player of the Year, the championship, and the Finals MVP. He's the only player in history to do all of that in a single season. In the playoffs, he would lead his team in all 5 major statistical categories: points, rebounds, assists, steals, and blocks. From one round to the next, he faced a ton of all-time greats. From Charles Barkley to Karl Malone and John Stockton to Patrick Ewing in the finals, where he substantially outplayed him and held him to just 36% shooting. Then, in the following year, the Rockets finished the season as the 6th seed in the West. Throughout their ups and downs, they would make a mid-season trade to acquire perennial All-Star Clyde Drexler, Olajuwon's college teammate. While things started off rough with other players not willing to accept Clyde onto their team, they would eventually turn it around and make another incredible playoff run, eliminating the favored San Antonio Spurs and eventually sweeping the Orlando Magic in the finals. As the 6th seed, they became the lowest seed in NBA history to win the championship, and up until today, that record still stands. So, how good was he actually? Well, during this time frame in the mid-90s, Hakeem was recognized as the best center in the league. In an era with other dominant centers, Hakeem stood out as a very special talent. Unlike most other centers, he almost had the skill set of a perimeter player. While he wasn't as fast and springy as he was back in the 80s, his post-game became more polished than ever, along with his ability to handle double teams much better than before. The Rockets were one of the first teams to implement this type of offense, where Hakeem would be sitting in the paint while 3 or 4 of his teammates would be just waiting at the three-point line for a pass, just in case Hakeem gets doubled or triple-teamed. This inside-out game is quite common in the NBA today, but back then, people didn't think it was possible to win a championship like that, to have so much of your offense run through one player. Hakeem was just that good. Unfortunately, after 1995, the Rockets would not make it back there. Even a last-ditch attempt at constructing a super team has failed, and Hakeem slowly faded into the sunset. He would finish his career with 12 All-Star selections, 12 All-NBA selections, an MVP, 9-time All-Defense, 2-time Defensive Player of the Year, 2-time Finals MVP, a 2-time champion, and a Hall of Famer. While his total number of rings pale in comparison to guys like Shaq or Kareem or Bill Russell, and his raw numbers are not as impressive as Wilt Chamberlain's, Hakeem is still certainly in the same conversation as all of those guys. Michael Jordan himself has said that if he had to choose one center for his all-time team, he would take Hakeem, because he was just so versatile and he could literally do everything and transformed the position. You could argue that he was the predecessor to this modern era of NBA centers. Centers who no longer play in a traditional or one-dimensional manner, but instead have complete games from top to bottom. It became the norm to see centers who have a guard-like skill set. Anyway, that's all folks. That sums up how good Hakeem Olajuwon actually was. Let me know your thoughts in the comments about his career and where would you rank him all time. I think he's certainly a top 10 player ever. What do you guys think? Thank you everyone so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, I'll see you next time. Peace.